let's do the last segment. This is a bad story, not good. There's a lot of badness in here. I think there's a couple things to learn from it at the end. As always, when we talk about these bad outcomes, it's like, what can we learn from it? So this is about a OBGYN who accidentally amputated a penis when he was doing a circumcision. This is out of what state, Sarah?
Florida.
Got it. There's another story out of Florida. Dr. Berto Lopez, an OBGYN, was just this last week found liable for a $100 million verdict in a malpractice case where he reportedly amputated 1/3 of a baby's penis in a botched circumcision.
At least it was only a third.
True, because it wasn't his first time.
Ugh.
Apparently he did this in 2017 and the baby lost their entire penis. And we'll talk about how that may have went down. Now here's where it starts to get crazy. Not only crazy because it was the second time, but he actually performed this procedure 10 days after the Florida Medical Board voted to permanently revoke his medical license. Okay? He didn't tell the family about that his license was revoked. So obviously that's problematic. The reason it got revoked is because one of his patients, a mother, bled to death after a delivery. And apparently he did not treat them appropriately. At the time that patient bled to death...
That is so messed up.
It keeps getting worse. At the time that patient bled to death, he was under a probation from the medical board where he could only operate under direct supervision by another doctor. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you really mess up and like the medical board thinks that you might be a hazard...
Don't you have to notify your patients that like, hey, yeah, I'm kind of not the greatest doctor?
I don't know what the laws are state to state, and that's a really good question, Sarah. I don't know if you're obligated to say that or not. I bet you're probably not.
Like, if he's having to work only with another doctor, isn't that like mean like probation? Like he's some type of
yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But
yeah.
You have to tell people when you're on probation, don't you?
I don't know. That's a great question. I bet it varies from state to state as well. I've always talked about how Florida has really kind of loose medical laws, and I think that's why we see so many.
Can you see it online? Can you see?
Yes, and that's something that I will definitely mention.
So everybody needs to go look at their doctors.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, the reason that he was on probation on that other death was because he had another patient who died from bleeding in a surgery. So I started digging through this guy, and there actually was an article listed out. All in all, this doctor was tied to 14 serious injuries to women and children and 6 deaths, 2 of them babies and 4 of them women. It's crazy. He also had 4 disciplinary actions by the medical board and 9 malpractice lawsuits.
Hate him.
Man, that is bad.
Where did he get his degree from?
I don't know. He's been in practice.
Florida?
He'd been in practice so long. He was apparently practicing for like 30 years, which, I was kind of looking up because OB is one of those specialties where people get sued a lot, but it was saying the average OB will see 2 to 3 lawsuits per career, which that's terrible. Like, I mean, I get that, OB is one of those specialties where things can go bad very quickly, and sometimes things can go bad and you may not be able to, save it.
Yeah.
My wife was an OB for years, and she got burned out because she had patients that would come in, no prenatal care whatsoever, babies crashing, and all you can do is just take them back and get the baby out as fast as possible. But the baby doesn't do well, and then the people are mad because the baby didn't do well.
So people like that get pregnant really never go to an OBGYN.
Yeah. Absolutely, it happens a lot. They just do no prenatal care. We actually, when I was in medical school, we actually delivered a lady who came in who didn't even know she was pregnant. She literally said she didn't know she was pregnant. I mean, obviously she's a bigger gal, right? I mean, if you're your size, you're gonna know when you're pregnant. Bigger gal, she didn't even know she's pregnant. So yeah, it does happen.
I've heard stories like that.
Yeah, I met somebody like that.
Yeah,
and I asked her,
stories. I feel like they made a show out of that.
Oh, did they?
Like, I didn't know I was pregnant or something.
Yeah. You have to be pretty big to not know. But I mean, I asked her, I was like, very politely, I was like, really? You didn't know?
Because their periods are off.
Anyways. Yeah, she's like, my periods are always off anyway. And like, I just, thought I was gaining weight. And I now looking back, I guess I could feel the baby move, but I thought I just had like, upset bowels or something, right? So it does definitely happen. So obviously this guy is
Trash.
not a good doctor. And my first question is, how do you botch a circumcision? I mean, obviously you probably don't have any idea how circumcisions are done, and there are several techniques, but like when I was in OB as a student, it was our job to do the circumcisions. It was either us or the interns. The interns would teach us how to do them. It's almost idiot-proof, depending on the type of method. Like nowadays, they use what's called a plastibell, and so it basically goes over the penis, and all you do is you tie the skin onto this little groove in the plastibell, and then once you do that, you just use scissors and you trim the skin. I mean, it's pretty much idiot-proof. Like I don't know how this guy did this, and not only did it once, but did it twice. I tried to look up what technique he used, and I couldn't find it. That's kind of really detailed information. Like,
Maybe,
right? They wouldn't just be like in a news article. Like,
maybe
which
he's
technique?
getting some type of like brain issues.
Maybe. I mean, was there some sort of substance, use or whatnot? And the other question is, how did the medical board allow him to stay in practice with all these bad things happening? I've said many times that I think that.
Is it state medical boards or national?
Yeah, it's state.
But obviously Florida has some pretty crappy boards then.
I think they might, because it's like we keep hearing these crazy stories out of Florida where things happen, and I'm like, how does this happen? How does this happen? And it's not their first time.
Yeah.
They're like repeat offenders of doing bad things. And I don't know. I mean, I do think that in some states, and I think Florida is probably the leading candidate, I think that the doctors may have a little bit too much protection. But then again, there's other states where I think that there's not enough.
Yeah.
I think Texas is pretty good. Like you see the medical board does come down on people here.
Yeah.
I think that there's a pretty good balance here. But I'm not sure.
But you're also not out there making crazy mistakes like that, dude.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, anyone can report anyone to the medical board, and so I've had the random patient that
hated you,
gets upset, and they'll report you, but like they look into it, and you send them information. They're like, yeah, there's nothing here. I mean, I've never had any action against me whatsoever, but I've had, I think 2 people report me to the medical board. One reported me, and I didn't even see the patient. They saw like my nurse injector, and they had a tiff, and so they reported me. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't even see the patient. But our medical board here in Texas, I think, is pretty good. But I'm not sure about the Florida one. I mean, obviously they revoked this guy's license, but what after all these people are already dead? I mean, I don't know. I want to get a representative from the Texas or from the Florida medical board up here. I want to ask them the hard questions.
Yeah. What are you doing?
And I guess the other reason, and you were asking this, how do you know? Most states, and I know Texas does. I assume every state does. You can look up on their medical board and do a search to see if a doctor has had any action against them.
Okay.
That's a pretty searchable function. It's not a national thing, but I'm pretty sure every state has that option. I'm not sure that that's not a bad idea to do. I mean, I would say this: if you look up a doctor and they have like, okay, doctor was disciplined for one thing, you'd be like, it could be nothing. But this guy had 4 or 6? 4 disciplinary actions by the board.
But how many people have died because of him?
6.
That's horrible.
Yeah, I know, right? Scary stuff. I mean, just like every profession, there's great lawyers, great police officers, great doctors, but then, there's always going to be a small percentage that are not great.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to rush to judgment, but I think in this case, with all of these bad things happening, like there's just something going on with this guy. Either he's, maybe too old.
I wonder when did it all start? When did he start having all these issues?
When I was looking back, it went back to like the 90s. He's been practicing 30 years. Because there was one of the articles listed out all of the patients he's had that where he was either sued or there was like some medical action. I mean, because you got 4 board complaints, 19 lawsuits, 9 lawsuits.
So it's just like standard procedure for him.
Yeah, I don't know how he stays
to be
in
messing
business.
stuff up.
I mean, obviously he's not in business anymore. He's a lot.
It's before Google reviews and internet.
Well, I mean, some of his career was Some of
Yeah.
his career. I think the internet does make it easier to like search.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to search things like medical boards. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, crazy stuff out of Florida. They never disappoint us with some shocking story. So, all right, I think that's all the time we have for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any comments or have any questions about what we talked about, please leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. And we'll see you guys next week on Nip Talk.
Bye.